Hey guys, it's Jessica and I am back with another video, and this time I am bringing you guys along for the ride because I am making a 6x6 mini album completely from scratch. I am not following any one particular tutorial. I am just going to be figuring this out as I go. So I knew that I wanted to use up an entire paper pack of 6x6 paper that I have had in my stash for a really long time. So I thought the best way to do that was to make a mini album. So the first thing I'm going to do is figure out the size of my book. Because the paper I am using is 6x6, then I know the base pages need to be 6 1/4 by 6 1/4 at the very least. So that gives me a 1/4 inch border all around my pretty paper. And then that means my covers that we'll make later on out of chipboard will need to be 6 1/2 by 6 1/2. So now when I say the term base pages, I am referring to the paper we are using to make the foundation of the book. And then we will adhere the pretty scrapbook paper to those base pages. In this circumstance, I am using 8 1/2 by 11 black cardstock. And I am cutting it down to 6 1/4 inches and leaving it 11 inches long, and then scoring it at 6 1/4 on that 11-inch side. So that way we will get a 6 1/4 base on the front and back of this page, and we will also get a flap that we can turn into a waterfall or a pocket or all sorts of things. So because my paper pad has 24 sheets of paper, I know that my front and back covers will at least need 2 pages each, so I can cover those, and that leaves me with 20 remaining sheets. Because I also have flaps in this book, I figured I would need probably about 10 pages to cover those front and back of all the flaps. So that means I have 10 pages left, which means I will need to make 5 base pages. So I cut and scored all 5 of my base pages, and those measurements again are 6 1/4 by 11 and scored at the 6 1/4 inch mark on that 11-inch side. And again, I'll put all of these measurements in the description of the video just so you can have them and refer back to them easily. So now we have to figure out how we are going to bind or get our book together. So when you're making a mini album, you need to have some sort of spine, whether you are using a binding tool or you're going to make the spine like we are going to do here. You have to have something that will join all of those pages together. So because my base pages are 6 1/4 inch tall, then I know my spine or binding elements need to be 6 1/4 inches tall. I know that I don't want this book to be super bulky, and because I only have 5 base pages, then I only need a 1/4 inch gusset. So what I'm doing is I'm cutting my scrap piece of black cardstock that I cut off from that base page, and I cut it down to 2 1/4 by 6 1/4. And then I scored it at 1 inches and then again at 1 1/4 inches. This is going to create a 1/4 inch gusset right there in the middle of that spine piece. And if you're new to mini albums, a gusset is the amount of space you are allowing in between each of your pages. Because once we add that patterned paper, once we add embellishments, once the person who has the book, adds photos or journaling, that book will get kind of bulky. So you definitely want to allow space in between those pages to account for some of that bulk. So I believe I ended up cutting right around 10 of these spine pieces. But again, I'll have the exact amount in the description of the video because you're going to need at least one to attach to the 2 pages. And then you're going to need it to attach to your front and back cover. So again, these are cut to 2 1/4 by 6 1/4. They are scored at the 1 inch mark and the 1 1/4 inch mark. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the front of that binding piece and I'm going to adhere it to the back of the page. And then the back of that binding piece will go to the front of the next page. So I'm showing you here, and hopefully this makes a little bit more sense because binding these mini albums together in this way is probably the most confusing part. And a lot of times I have to sit and kind of mess with the book and figure out how I'm going to do it. But that front of the binding piece is going to the back of that previous page. So you can see here that I've already got a lot of my pages glued together, but I wanted to really kind of outline this process. So now that back of the binding element is now being adhered to the front of our next page. So you definitely want to make sure that all of your flaps open up to the right. If not, it's going to kind of mess up your book and they're going to open the wrong way, and it's going to be a little bit hard to fix. The one thing I should have done was I should have used paper clips and paper clipped all of those flaps down, because they kind of got in the way when I was gluing. So if this is a project you want to do, I would definitely suggest doing that. You can see here I'm constantly having to tuck them back in. So again, that front of that binding piece attached to my first page, and then I moved on to my next binding piece and so forth, and I will end with my front binding piece attached to that back page, and then I'll have another binding piece that will attach to the back cover. So you're always going to need a way to attach the book to your covers, and I am just using it in this flap method. There are definitely other methods you can follow, but this is just the way I decided to do it this time. I think I failed to mention that this is going to be a 4-part series, and this is just part 1. If I did mention it, then sorry, you're hearing it again. But I thought it would just be kind of fun to bring you guys along as we figure this out. So now I am figuring out that my spine is 1 3¼ inches wide. So I will need to account for that when I put together my covers. So that is going to be the end of this first video, and I hope you come along with me for the ride. And thank you so much for watching, and please let me know if you have any questions.